I raised my daughter here in Ashland. I think when we got here, she was in the second grade. And at some point along the way, she liked to ask daddy questions. We became very, very close. But there were times, sometimes in the middle of the night, 11, 12 o'clock at night, we would go out and just walk. And we would talk, and she would ask me questions, and we were walking through the town of Ashland in the middle of the night, and just chatting, and I didn't realize, how much we grew together, and how close we had become, just walking up and down the streets of Ashland. And the people were so inviting. They're very kind. Everybody knows everybody. When I started running for town council, people would ask me, because I'm an introvert and I'm kind of quiet, so I always explain that to people so they know they don't feel too put off. Once I've said that, I think I said it to one or two people. After that, everybody I met said, "Oh yeah, you're running for town council and you're an introvert." So, but it was neat just how people get to know you and how friendly they are. I've been in the National Park Service for 40 years. I'm going to retire pretty soon. And I want to do my part. I want to give back. I've wanted to give back since I was very, very young, but I moved away from home and was never able to go back. But I want to do that here. I want to contribute what I can and the experience that I can to the community, because I think we all owe it back. We all need to pay it forward. Looking at the issues, looking at the problem, talking to people, getting a real feel for what people want, for what their concerns are, getting a real feel for what's going to affect the town. When I think about my own, the town I grew up in, it's not there anymore, it's gone, because people have moved away. One of the things that I'm concerned about with the town is growth. Not that you don't want growth, but it has an effect. And I think that we have to figure out, what do we want Ashland to be? Ashland's beautiful the way it is, but it's not gonna stay that way. It's like my daughter, I loved her when she was small, but she grew up. I still love her now. She's just a little different than what she was when she was younger. And Ashland's going to grow too. And I think that we have to work together to figure out, what do we want Ashland to be? And what kind of town do we want to live in? And we have to work together to hopefully guide it in that direction. So it's going to become something different, but we want it to be able to hold and keep its unique character. It would be the tracks, and it would be the train. And right now where the train center is at, is that when you look, there's two sides of that train station. And this is what I mean about the buildings speak, and they speak to the history. But there's two sides of it, there's two doors, and sometimes people don't notice that, but there was a reason for those two doors. And it speaks to history, and it speaks to the things that have occurred. It speaks to where we were, where we've come from, and where we are. It's interesting how those types of places, tell a story. There's a lot of traditions that I love about Ashland. You have Light the Tracks, the Strawberry Festival, but I think one of the neatest things I found about Ashland, which was something that I didn't have when I was growing up, but it was a farmer's market. And I think that is so cool. When I was a kid, I knew that food came from a farm, I was aware of that, but I was never within that kind of proximity of it. And it's just so neat going to the farmer's market and seeing so many different people come from so many different places who are, selling the things that they've either made or they've grown with their own hands. And it's even neat knowing that that's not far away. And I really enjoy coming to the farmer's market, buying things from the farmer's market. Lately I've gotten hooked on the granola. My wife's kind of got me into yogurt. So I love putting granola in the yogurt, and there's like a couple ladies that sell granola, so I'm always there trying to make sure I get my fill, and got to make sure you get there like before 10 o'clock or there won't be any left. I think the other thing I really enjoy about it was that, when I first got here, there was a chief of police named Chief Goodman, and the guy was so open. And he was so friendly, and I got to know him. We would have coffee together, and I don't, even I was a law enforcement ranger and chief of police, and I got to know other chiefs of police. But, as a civilian, it was really neat to get to know him and to get close to them. And even with the current chief of police, I know him very well as well. But it was just so neat to see, the chief of police gets around and talks to everybody. Even there's other people in my church that know, the chiefs of police and talk to them, and they get around and chat with them. It's neat, being able to, talk to someone like that just on a daily basis.